It's Jobs Friday, and that, as usual, brings us to a new bright idea. Tonight, the entrepreneurs behind Honest Tea, made with real tea and less sweetener. Now, Coca-Cola bought the company in 2011 for a price reported to be above $100 million. So how'd they do it? Well, their bright idea, the next one, aims to explain.
Given all the drinks out there, you'd think this is a recipe for disaster.
For years now, Yale business professor Barry Nailbuff and his former student Seth Goldman have been telling the story of Honest Tea.
So a simple idea, tea that tastes like tea as opposed to liquid candy.
We had no pre-existing knowledge of the beverage industry. As we all know, it's a brutal industry. And yet we grew it from 5 thermoses and an empty Snapple bottle with a label pasted on it to over 100 million bottles a year.
Now they're telling and selling their amazing business story in a book, Mission in a Bottle. Out just 2 months, it spent 6 weeks as a New York Times bestseller. Like their less sweet drinks, it's different.
Just as the beverage industry didn't need another beverage, another Me Too beverage, the business world or the bookshelves didn't need just another business book.
A couple of years ago, Goldman noticed that one of his sons was hooked on comic books.
I was supposed to go tell him, don't read comic books to your homework. He kind of lured me in with the comic books. I said, then we've got to find a way to make a business book as engaging, as inspiring as a comic book can be.
Lessons that are learned visually really stick with people, right? That's why we do TV. If you want people to remember what you've done in the lessons, show, don't just tell. Great tea is a nickel a cup. Bad tea is a penny.
Nailbuff did a show and tell at Comic-Con alongside New York artist Sung-Yoon Choi, who took on the arduous task, about a page a day, of converting their story into a graphic novel.
It's not rocket science, but it wasn't easy either.
It's not fiction, so I prefer that. We should call it novel graphic.
Novel graphic.
The process was novel too.
I've never read any business book before.
She learned things like how they expanded beyond natural food stores and how a decision to buy a bottling plant cost tens of thousands of dollars a day. Then she turned their lessons into what amounts to a screenplay.
There were countless rejections and a few near-death experiences for the company and ourselves.
Those bubbles are basically the length of a tweet. And so it's written in tweets with good grammar.
But our story has so many visual elements, whether it's the tea gardens, the label design, the bottling plants, the personal stories that go on. And this is a way to make the story really come alive.
I tried to make you or Seth react to the objects that you're explaining.
Choi grew up in South Korea reading manga, a Japanese style of storytelling. In Japan, the manga business has been estimated at $5 billion a year. Here, it's a tiny fraction of that, maybe $200 million.
Anything that could happen in the life, like using the life story, like manga covers all that.
Nailbuff has high hopes for the comic format. Mission in a Bottle has already popped up in college classrooms, not just at Yale, but at Michigan, Maryland, American, and Babson.
You're able to take complicated ideas and by illustrating them, get people to pay attention, have it sink in.
He may be on to something. Earlier this year, a University of Oklahoma study showed students retained more information after reading a graphic novel than a traditional textbook.
It's not as if people are doing a lot of homework these days. So if you get somebody to read it and remember it, call it a victory.
A different medium delivering a potentially valuable message.
This book is really emphasizing all the things that went wrong, because if you can avoid the mistakes that we made, that will save you millions.
It's a guide to building a mission-driven business in a profit-driven world.
Seth Goldman is still in charge of that mission, staying on as TEO at Honest Brands. Barry Nailbuff, no longer with the company. He kept his day job teaching at Yale, where they sing Bula Bula. He's got the moolah. That's their fight song, as you probably know.
He does.
Such a simple idea, but from often the simplest come the greatest fortunes.
Come the greatest fortunes. That's so true. Have a great weekend, everybody. That's it for Nightly Business Report for tonight. I'm Sue Herrera. Susie will be back here on Monday. Thanks for joining us.
And I'm Tyler Matheson. Thanks from me as well. Have a great evening and weekend, everybody. We'll see you back here on Monday night.